Welcome to the Arena Hero. This is David from Unison Games Cafe. You are watching this video because you are either a loyal subscriber to our YouTube channel, of which we thank you, or you scanned the QR code on the back of your custom starter deck. Either way, this video is meant to inform you of the deck's contents, some strategy on how you can play it, and ways to upgrade it with cards you've purchased from your local game store, or cards that you have in your collection. In this video, we'll be discussing the Brute class. As you can see here, we've got Rhinar, the Reckless Rampage. More so, this video will be a great resource to those who are just looking for some insight on how to play the class, how they function, and some strategies that you can take advantage of. Without further ado, let's open this up and get started. Alright, here we are. When you open your starter deck, you are presented with a 60 card ready to go deck. Now there is more than 60 cards in here because you're counting your hero, your equipment, your weapon, everything like that. These cards right here are other cards that you can customize your deck, and the remainder of the play set of commons that you get in your deck. So these are all the cards for Brute through Welcome to Wraith, the set that Brute was introduced in. Here's the deck box. We'll put that off there. Let's spread out the cards in your constructed deck. All right, guys, a lot of stuff to focus on. I've got the constructed deck splayed out before me on this very cool mat. We've got our rares over here on the side that we'll get to, but let's focus on the class and the hero, Rhinar. Do a quick zoom in here. So, Rhinar. The Brute class specializes in a keyword called Intimidate. Intimidate is a way to essentially disrupt your opponent's hand. The ebb and flow of this game with attacking and defending, your opponent is obviously going to use cards in their hand that they don't mind defending with. They don't mind actually discarding to defend against the Brute's attacks. The way Intimidate works is that when you intimidate your opponent, you randomly pick a card out of their hand, or they roll a dice, some randomization, to take a card out of their hand for the turn. They will get those cards back. Technically, it banishes it if we zoom in here. There we go. So this says, whenever you discard a card with 6 or more power during your action phase, Intimidate. So, and then the little reminder text, target hero, banishes face down a random card from their hand at the beginning of the end phase. Return all cards banished this way to the owner's hand. So, in practice, if you were to play a card, let's say one of your rares, Barraging Big Horn, as an additional cost to play Barraging Big Horn, discard a random card. So you yourself will discard a random card. This deck will have many cards, you'll notice, that have high power counts. The reason being is that you want to trigger Rhinar. So you need a power 6 or more card to be discarded. So let's say we play Barraging Big Horn, paying the resource cost of 2, and randomly our opponent picks this card out of our hand to discard as an additional cost. That would then trigger Intimidate on Rhinar, and you would pick a card out of their hand to defend. Now where this gets a little crazy is that when you use some other cards that also discard from their hand or have Intimidate built in. So this thing, Barraging Big Beatdown, costs 0. The next Brute attack this turn gains, while this attack is defended with less than 2 non-equipment cards, it has +3. So if you were to play Barraging Beatdown, it has Intimidate already. So you're going to Intimidate just off of this card right here. So boom, there's one card out of their hand of 4. Possibly they have something in their arsenal, but one of their cards out of their hand from 4, go again. Now we play the Barraging Big Horn, discard a card. This also gets more cards out of your hand so that the random discard here triggers more successfully. So if your hand looks like this, you could play 2 Barraging Beatdowns, Intimidate twice, leaving this in your hand. You play your Barraging Big Horn, discarding the only card you have left, 7 power, and boom, Intimidate a 3rd time. This is coming in, and if it's defended by less than 2 non-equipment cards, it gets go again. Maybe you could follow up with a Romping Club if you have another attack in your arsenal, possibly. But if not, both of these will trigger because now you've intimidated 3 cards out of their hand. If they defend with less than 2 non-equipment cards. So if they only have 1 card left in their hand, these are both going to trigger. +3, on top of 7. That's a 13 attack. That's what Rhinar is all about. That Intimidate keyword. Again, whenever you discard a card with 6 or more, Intimidate. So that is Rhinar. Let's look at the equipment. All right, in this starter deck, you have your equipment slots here. Every starter deck comes with 7 pieces of equipment. Your namesake piece of equipment here, reason being because it is a brute equipment, is the Barkbone Strapping. As an instant, so this doesn't take an action point, you can destroy it, roll 6-sided die, gain resources equal to half the number rolled down. So like we just talked about, that if you had go again and you wanted to attack with your club, but you don't have the resources to do so, you can blow this up, hopefully get enough resources to attack again. That's Barkbone Strapping. You also have some options here into your other slots. So we've got Iron Rock Gauntlets, great for just defending for 1. Braces of Belief has an attack action. You're playing a lot of red cards, so you can actually increase the power of your attack by 3 and whatever is on top of your deck. So if you reveal a red pitch card, it's going to be -1 to the 3, so it's going to give +2 to your attack. This is a game of inches, so every little bit of damage helps. In the head slot, you've got your Iron Rot Helm for some defense, but let's say you're going to be playing against either the Wizard or the Runeblade, or anybody, depending on when this video is viewed, anyone that has arcane damage, you have an option to block some of that as well for Nullrune Hood. If you don't know, watching this video, what arcane damage is, check out the Learn to Play, or one of the other videos for the Wizard or Runeblade. Same thing in the leg slot. You've got Nullrune Boots, again, going against those arcane heroes. You also have the Snapdragon Scalers. Doesn't have any defense, does have an attack reaction where you can destroy this to give an attack action that costs 1 or less, go again. So if you're attacking in with something like Savage Swing, and you happen to intimidate some cards out of your opponent's hand, and you have more resources, you want to give this go again after they've taken maybe 10 damage, 7 damage, whatever it might be. You can give this go again, get another action point, maybe lead in with your club, or another attack action. That is your equipment for the Rhinar starter deck. All right, let's go over some of the cards that you can find in your Rhinar Brute starter deck. First things first, in the rare slot, we've got Barraging Beatdown, the blue and the yellow variety. What you're trying to do here is you're trying to set up your big attacks to not only intimidate more, because you have Intimidate innately on the actual card, but you're looking to intimidate so many cards out of their hand that you get this plus bonus. So we don't necessarily care so much about the bonus. That's why we've got the blue and the yellow in here. You are going to need these as resources sometimes. This is a great late game card to pitch early for the resource to then draw later on in the game to really push that damage, because now your opponent's not going to have as many resources possibly to block your attacks. Barraging Beatdown gives you Intimidate, also gives you the benefit of additional damage if your opponent doesn't have the cards from hand to block. So a great follow-up to a Barraging Beatdown could be one of either Savage Feast, again in the rare slot, and Barraging Big Horn. So you wanted to play your Barraging Beatdown to give Intimidate. Now you've got 2 different sets of cards here that are going to discard a random card to trigger Rhinar's effect. Again, Rhinar will Intimidate as well when you discard a card with 6 or more. So we've got the yellow Savage Feasts in here as your attacking card. You want to be able to play the yellow. It only has a 5. What you're trying to do is discard the remaining cards from your hand, whether it be the red Savage Feast, any of the commons, or any cards you see here that have 6. So yellow Savage Feast you're going to want as your attacker. You also draw a card when you discard. So that's going to give you more resources to possibly put into an additional attack. If you want to utilize your equipment to get go again and follow up with your club or even another attack, this drawn card could be a blue resource, could be something else that you're going to want to use. So again, utilize those yellow Savage Feasts. Barraging Big Horn is essentially Barraging Beatdown on a stick. It has that same effect where if it's defended by less than 2 non-equipment cards, but in this case, it gets go again. So if you can somehow manage to get a Barraging Big Horn and a Savage Feast off on the same turn, you're going to intimidate probably twice, in addition to the Barraging Beatdown, and then you're going to get this trigger go again here. So you would want to lead with Barraging Big Horn, see if they don't defend with 2, get go again, finish it off with Savage Feast or another big attack. Also in the rare slot, you have Breakneck Battery. Classic card for the Brute. This lucky person got a foil one. Nice. And Drone of Brutality as a one-of here. Now, Drone of Brutality is pretty cool because you have that 6 power, and if you happen to discard it, when this is put to your graveyard from anywhere, instead put it in the bottom of your deck. So this is going to keep coming back. This is a great target to discard to any of the abilities that you have, like Breakneck Battery, as an additional cost to play Breakneck Battery to discard a random card. If that card is 6 or more, this gains go again. So it's just like Barraging Big Horn. You would love to discard this Drone of Brutality to that, because this will come back so that you can set up this combo again in later turns. Looking at some of the common play set, you've got Savage Swing, kind of one of your more basic attacks. Only costs 1. Additional cost that you're going to get that trigger, hopefully, off of Rhinar. The way we're building these decks is so that you can, all of these cards are going to be 6 power or more, so that you can trigger Rhinar. So this is 1 for a 7 attack, which is big, and you're going to Intimidate. The biggest thing about Intimidate is that a lot of times your opponent is going to want to block with certain cards because they themselves have a combo in their hand. Well, when you pick a card out that they were going to use as a defense, they might have to defend with the card that they wanted. So that's what you're trying to do. Pack Hunt has Intimidate innate, which is great. Sometimes you don't want to discard anything. Pack Hunt is great for that. Smash Instinct. Some of the best art in the game, I think. Smashing them good. Smash Instinct, you got a couple different colors here. Intimidate innately, same deal. After a Pack Hunt, sometimes you just want to smash this one turn. Especially as you're pitching these cards. These are great late game cards. Intimidate card out of their hand. Make them force them to play with cards they don't want to play with. Now, you're getting the full, at least in the constructed deck. Now, you are getting play sets of your entire common slot, but these are in the deck because all of them are relevant, even down to the blue. Has a strength of a power of 6. So Wrecker Romp, additional cost. Here's a discard effect. Wrecker Romp is a great card because you get that Intimidate off of that. You get it at all color levels. And I mean, 8 is nothing to sneeze at. Now we're going to get into some of the non-attack actions that the Brute has. First up is Awakening Bellow. The next Brute attack action you play this turn gets +3 and Intimidate innately. So this is a little bit different than Barraging Beatdown. In the rare slot, there's Barraging Beatdown, so you guys can compare. This is only going to give you that plus if they don't block with 2 non-equipment. So this is more of a gotcha. It does cost 0, which is great. Awakening Bellow does cost 1, but you'll notice a lot of the cards that we're talking about, like Wrecker Romp here, cost 2. So you pitch a blue, you can Awakening Bellow, Intimidate off of that, Wrecker Romp. There's 2 cards out of your hand. The third one for your pitch. So just for argument's sake, let's say you pitch a blue Barraging Beatdown here for 3 resources. 1 for Awakening Bellow, Intimidate. That's 1 card out of their hand. Use the other 2 for the Wrecker Romp. No, you already used 3 cards here, so that last card should have a 6 power. You're going to randomly discard that last card. It's going to Intimidate again off of Wrecker Romp, and now Wrecker Romp is coming in for 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. They lost 2 cards out of their hand. They're probably going to block with those last 2, and those 2 cards might be something that they wanted for next turn. So the best defense for Brute is a good offense, and we're just looking for that effect, the Intimidate and the plus there. So you've got the red and the blue in the starter deck. Yellows will be in your side deck, so you have those as well if you want to do a little tweaking. And last but not least, let's see here. We've got Primeval Bellow for Brute cards. Another similar effect. Costs 0, which is great. And you get that discard a random card trigger. So if you've got a couple attacks in your hand, maybe you've got a couple Wrecker Romps, Maybe you've got just 2 generic attacks that are going to attack for 7 or 6 or something like that. You don't really mind which one you discard because the other one is still going to benefit. So as additional cost, discard it. Your next brute attack gets +5. Now these hit harder than Awakening Bellow. So Primeval Bellow, super cool. And don't forget, if you ever have an issue where you discard the card that you thought you wanted, Awakening Bellow increases +3 to an attack action card. So again, something like your Breakneck Battery. Bottom, attack action. Now you'll notice on Primeval Bellow, it says, your next brute attack this turn gets +5. Brute attack. There's no action in there. So what that means is that you can then, let's say you discard the card you wanted to attack with. You discarded the Wrecker Romp. You can come in with the club. So for 2, coming in for 4, this is an attack on a brute weapon. So that works with your brute attack +5. So you can Primeval Bellow, discard that card that you wanted to attack with. That's going to trigger this once per turn when you discard a card with 6 or more. Romping Club gets +1, so now you're at 5. +5. 10 to the club. Ain't too bad. So, great last-ditch effort. Primeval Bellow, super cool card. There's the blues, there's the reds in the deck right there. Now, we also gave you guys some generic cards that are going to work for what you're trying to do. A couple attack actions. You've got Demolition Crew, again, the 6 power. This gives you a Dominate effect, which means they can only block with 1 card from hand, which is really cool. So that could be useful, especially toward the later turns. A Barraging Brawnhide has that same effect, that barraging. We'll call it the barraging effect, because all the barraging cards have this kind of, if you don't block with 2 non-equipments. So if you don't block with 2 non-equipments, Barraging Brawnhide is going to go up to 7. So pretty cool there. Way to force an issue. And then as kind of like a last-ditch effort, it is blue, so it's a good resource. But especially toward the end of the game, when you either come in with your club or you come in with a card like Barraging Brawnhide, Wrecker Romp, whatever it might be, if you hit a hero, they discard a card. This is an attack reaction. So another great gotcha card. Coming in with Barraging Brawnhide, they commit 2 to defend because they don't want that trigger. They think they're going to block fully for the 6. You come over the top with a pummel, giving it +2, and if this hits a hero, they discard a card. So not only did you get the 2 cards out of their hand, but you also got them to discard that last card that they were saving with the pummel. Great card as well. All right, so now ways to upgrade your deck. I'm not going to talk about legendaries. The legendaries for every class are very good. They really help out your deck. They really hone in on what you're trying to do with that hero. The Brute class is no exception. The best cards, I think, to add to this deck would be Bloodrush Bellow. It triggers the Intimidate. It gives your brute attacks +2. And you're able to draw more cards if that card is a 6 power, which it probably is. You get 2 cards and go again. It's everything that you want to do as Brute. Bloodrush Bellow is probably one of the best cards that you want to get. And then Rhinar Specialization Alpha Rampage is also a great card to add to this deck. Gives you Intimidate innately. It makes you discard a random card, which will give you Intimidate again off of Rhinar. It does cost 3, so hopefully you could maybe pitch a couple cards to really make sure that you land that Intimidate with Rhinar. And then you're coming in for 9. So also a great card to put on the back end of something like a Barraging Beatdown or even one of the Bellows. So those are a couple cards I would say be on the lookout for. Maybe trade with your local game store or go to www.unisongamescafe.com and see if we have it in stock. Other than that, guys, this has been the starter strategy video for the Rhinar starter deck that we have here. I hope you guys enjoy playing Flesh and Blood. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content for Flesh and Blood. And we'll see you in the arena.